Shadow Warrior 3! I'm finally doing the review. I don't care that it's this late. It's just going to be a review that I'm going to talk about this great game and you're going to enjoy it. You're going to sit there. You're going to take what I give you and you're going to like it. Shadow Warrior 3 is the first-person shooter your gunfu nerve has been pulsating for. Your gunplay itch has been itching since Doom Eternal. The craving you've been craving for blood and gore since Blood Extra Crispy. Once again, Lo Wang needs to save the world, and we're the only ones that can do it. Wang, for newcomers of the series, like me, is a perfect combination of Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and a bit of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool jammed into one eccentric package. I do have to say though, Flying Wild Hog has really outdone themselves in this one. I didn't know they made first-person shooters this good, and I should know this, but I don't. This was a surprise, but a pleasant one. Flying Wild Hog really changed the formula once again. Shadow Warrior, the new reboot series, has gone through quite a few little different iterations. I kind of played the first one. I didn't play the second one, and I was very excited about playing the third one. I played the classics, the originals. Those were great back in the day. This was completely different though, and those who are going to get a little bit upset by the numerous Doom Eternal and Doom comparisons I'm going to make in this review, best you leave now, Chad, because I'm gonna fucking make those comparisons. It's very easy to make those comparisons. Doom Eternal rocks. If you don't like that, then fuck off. We're gonna carry on with the rest of the review. Anyway, with some cheesy one-liners and a creative execution on the formula, Shadow Warrior 3 is fun. At the core of the game, it is fun. It's hilarious, it's ridiculous, it's fun, but it's a great relief from the serious sweat of modern first-person shooters. Now, let's have some fun. Alright, first things first, we're not here for the story, but the story is still worth talking about. I love a good story, and Shadow Warrior 3, you can struggle a little bit to put the story together. There are a few gaps in the story that you may need from the first game and the second game in the reboot series, but overall, it doesn't take a genius to deduce the dynamics of the story at this point. Wang did it dumb, the world is ending, and only by joining forces, the good guys and the bad guys can actually stand a chance at saving the world. And that's why we get Zilla back in this mix. I like Zilla, he's cool. But anyway, the rest of the story is basically hero's story for Wang, and everyone learns a lesson in this hero's journey, and they come out great on the other side. There is actually a lot of lore files for you to read through if you'd like. I mean, this is a great thing that I think that more games in FPS space should do. Why have a lot of exposition where we have the option of getting the lore and the in-depth story in our off time? We can go into the lore files, we can go into the scrolls, and read a little bit more about the backstories of the characters in the game and that kind of thing. That can help a little bit, especially when you're trying to play a game that is fast-paced and as intense as Shadow Warrior 3. But in a nutshell, the story matters far less. But it does give you something to work towards. Blowing away that scaly bitch dragon with a BFG and saving the world. Alright, we're going to talk a little bit about the music here. Firstly, the music is damn groovy. Created by the talented Machi Kulija. His soundtrack is quite quirky and upbeat, though it does take a lot of inspiration from the typical Asian fighting kung fu house soundtrack mix, with a touch of electronic right there in the background. I do like the pace through each arena. It does keep your heart pumping and it does tie everything in together. I like that. While the narrative points in the story do tend to arc back to a bit more Asian fusion style, things that we would be used to in kung fu movies, and that's pretty cool. I like that. I don't think the music struggles to find a beat in between Wang's one-liners or the katana strikes or blasts through your gun. I think everything does flow quite well together, and the music overall is a winner for me. I'd love to get it on the soundtrack, and I think I did. I just don't know how to get it from Steam. A quick note on the voices and the one-liners and that kind of thing. I think the voice acting for Wang, especially by Mike Mo, is great. Frankly, I didn't even notice the change in the voice actor, and I'm not even going to talk about that. That's not the point of this review. They did change the voice actor. I don't really care. Saying that, I'm not sure what that says about the generic nature of Wang's voice himself, that it's so easy to change a voice actor, but I thought it was right on the money for me. Wang is as funky as ever, and while apparently not to everyone's tastes, someone with a sense of humor that is as long as my dick joke. I like that sense of humor. Though there is a few weird dubbing things. Sometimes the character models don't keep pace with whatever the sound or the voiceover is. It feels like you're watching a really bad dubbed anime, and frankly, that's just insulting. It's a weird issue to have in a game like this, and I'm not sure why it wasn't corrected. Maybe this was intentional. It would be very meta if it was intentional. Speaking of intentional, we're gonna get to my favorite part of this. The visuals. It's beautiful. It's glorious. I've never seen anything like it. Well, of course I have, but I mean, this is a great, gorgeous looking game in a nutshell. It's very pretty. Probably too pretty, because you don't really get to enjoy the environmental aspect so much because you're too busy running around, but it is gorgeous. And there were many points in the game that I just stopped and took a second just to enjoy the scenery and the sunset. And was that sunrise? It doesn't matter. It was beautiful. It was one of the most striking landscapes I've ever seen in a game in a very long time. Now, when it comes to the overall user experience, I do want to put it out there that your eyes may bleed green and red at the same time through your nostrils as well. Flying Wild Hog basically went down to the visual effects department and was like, hey, I see everything's turned up to 11. What about 12? It's a beautifully looking game. The aesthetics are amazing. The visual effects are out of this world. And I think this speaks a little bit back to the colorful nature of the game. While you are immersed in the environment, and there is definitely a gameplay death loop that you're going to be partaking in, you can hear your PC weeping across the universe by the volume of particles that it needs to render at any given time, especially in the more intense battles later in the game. There is a lot going on screen, and frankly, my eyes started to water, and that I'm not ashamed to say. It's a lot to take in, but it was beautiful. The game also does try and make an effort to visually mark things that you need to be doing. For example, red is for health. That's bright on the screen. You know where to go. Blue is for ammo. Green is for environmental interaction and engaging objects like your grappling hook. And yellow is for power-ups. Now, these things, like in Doom Eternal originally, which seemed a bit funky chicken for me. I mean, I know why it existed. It took a bit of the aesthetic away from 2016 for me, but I can see why in Shadow Warrior, it kind of works a little bit more. The screen and the energy of the game is very colorful and is very bright. And in this way, the game easily tells you what to do and where to do it in any arena you find yourself in. You know where to get your ammo, you know where to get your health, you know where to get your power-ups, and that does come through quite readily. Sometimes I would say maybe when it doesn't need to. I think the in-between parts between each arena, the broadcasting of each environmental engagement, like with your grappling hook or your wall running, I don't feel it blended as well into the environment as I would have liked. It might be too kind of plastered on, you know, like a bandage on your skin, so it doesn't really blend in. It's there, it's fine, it's covering everything up, it has a purpose, but it kind of just sticks out. It's noticed. That was my only gripe with it, though functionally it works very well. We've seen it in Doom Eternal before, and in this case it does make for an overall good gameplay aesthetic. But now, speaking of the beauty of this game, the gore, the guts, I was a little let down by a few things. Now let's talk about this. This game is amazing, and Flying Wild Hog has done an amazing job with it, but I was a little frustrated with a few things in the graphic style and the glitches of the game. There needs to be a little bit of polish, and I know this game was delayed for quite a while. I originally had intended on developing out a whole series of Shadow Warrior reviews and gameplay footages and things like that last year. Never got around to it. Very sad. I'm dumb for it. But there is a consistent problem. Now, I played this on PC, just for the record. There is a consistent problem with bugging or clipping when you're engaging in a finisher. You are running and gunning, you're slicing and dicing, and when you finish a particular enemy, there was never not a finisher executed smoothly on two of my runs. Specifically, the Banner Demon finisher. It always felt glitchy. It always felt a little chonky, that it was never quite exactly finished or stitched together correctly. I don't want to go as far as to say it was the end of the world for me, but when you're playing for 5 to 6 hours and this is a consistent issue, that little bit of a tick in the back of my head kept bringing me out of the enjoyment of the overall game, and that was a bit irritating. Several hours of this, that's a pain. There is a bit of inconsistencies with a lot of the free running movements in the game. When you're going to be jumping on a particular ledge, you don't automatically climb up to it. You kind of fall through the floor in some places. The sliding, even though you can slide on different surfaces, it tends to kind of get stuck, which is weird. Or you run out of momentum and then get stuck again. It's a bit strange, and that I felt was very inconsistent throughout the game. Sometimes you would be able to make that ledge, sometimes you wouldn't. Sometimes the slide was very consistent. You can slide the whole way down a particular area. Sometimes you got stuck halfway through. And I found this was a little bit funky because the slide mechanic especially wants you to dodge out of the way of falling objects, and you can't really do that because the slide has just stopped in the middle of a ridge, so it's a little awkward. The free running aspect of it seemed like they needed a little bit longer time in the oven. One of the biggest problems I had, and I have to call out ACG here. ACG spoke about the seamless transitions between gameplay and cinematics. I'm gonna have to hard disagree with my man here. The problem is that there was no cinematic that did not glitch before it loaded, and that was a consistency across both of my playthroughs on my PC. I went on higher settings, lower settings, changed the graphics around, nothing seemed to help it. Every time you go through one gameplay episode to a great looking cinematic, there was a 1 to 2 second glitch out where maybe the voice went a little heavier, a little further, or there was just a black screen, and that was consistent. The same could be said between leaving a cinematic and going into gameplay. There seems to be a bit of a drop off. You don't pick up where the cinematic automatic ended. So there was a little weird things like that. Again, why not fix before launch? I mean, I get it, that's fine. But these are little gripes that I've seen throughout my experience. No, this doesn't kill the game for me, but it does ruin the flow in my overall experience, especially in a game that is touting flow and gameplay. This is a bit of an issue for me. You gotta get these kinds of things right. It just would be a big shame if this Jack-in-the-Box was ruined because of a bit of bad stitching work. But hey, look, we're here to talk about gameplay and mechanics. It's what we're all here for. We love a good bit of gameplay. A lot of you guys are doomers, and I understand that. A lot of you guys have played older Shadow Warrior games. And let me just go out and say that the Wang dance is alive and well in this game. Means shooting for health, slashing for your katana for ammo, swinging around arenas, getting power-ups, executing finishes. The Wang dance is glorious, and it's action-packed. Definitely one of the more intense experiences that I've engaged in since Doom Eternal. You could be infinitely dashing around arenas, wading through fodder enemies, taking down pretty complex heavy enemies. The heavies, actually, for one, make up for a decent chunk of each arena's action. I found a little bit late in the game that you started to get tiers and tiers and tiers of different heavies coming in. You know when that laser shogun is coming in, or when that wannabe mancubus is coming in right at the end of the game, and the arenas can get thick. They can get very thick in contrast to the earlier parts of the game, which is great because there's some natural, organic difficulty progression, and I like that. Yes, it does start to become a little bit repetitive after a while. You start to predict what kind of enemies are coming when and why and how to finish them, but I think on higher difficulties, once you've mastered certain aspects of the Wang dance, it'll be a lot of fun. It's already a lot of fun. I just found that little repetitive nature far to the end of the game a little bit of a letdown, but shit, that's a nitpick right there. Speaking of enemies, each enemy lets you action a finisher. Now, finishers are essentially like glory kills, call it what it is, but they add a little bit more to the game. They add a bit more flavor. Finishers are one-hit kill every enemy. To do finishers, you need to get golden orbs throughout any arena to power that energy up. Then, once you execute a finisher, you also get full health. Pretty groovy. The only thing with this is, besides your fodder enemies, every finisher gives you access to GORE weapons. For the Kigatsu, it's the Ice Bomb. For the Oni Hanma, it gives you this epic GORE hammer, which basically gives you smashing earth attacks. For the Hattori, this gives you a long blade where you can dash and cut enemies down. Magura gives you a hectic drill thing, which frankly is a little absurd and gets in my way. Not my favorite, but my two favorites is the Slinky Jakku party cannon. I don't know if that's the actual name for the gun, but I'm calling it the party cannon, which essentially shoots lots of mini rockets out and decimates waves and waves of enemies in front of you. And then the Shokera, which is, think of it like from Harry Potter, a snitch from Harry Potter with blades. The way you use it is by line of sight. So wherever Wang looks, that's where this bladed eyeball flies around and kills everything. It's a really great mechanic to kind of weigh down a lot of heavies if you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Overall, the GORE weapons are a pretty neat touch and adds that unique gameplay element that I think a lot of people need from a game like this coming out of more complex shooters like Eternal. It mixes things up in every arena because you're not always going to get the same finishes every tier. Sometimes you're going to opt for a different finisher. You're not going to have enough power-ups, so you're not going to get that blade, or you're not going to get the party cannon or whatever. You're going to get what's on order. And sure, that can mean sometimes just a health power up when you really need it. Sometimes you get the gun that you really want for that situation. So that does add that variety, and this gives you some more tactics to think about on the fly for your average Wang dance. Oh, and we haven't even gotten to your guns yet, have we? No, we're not even done that. So let me tell you about this. So even though you got your GORE weapons, you got your key blasts, you got your beautiful movement throughout every arena, and you got such a variety of enemies to engage with, you also get a selection of 6 guns. Unlike previous installments, which I didn't play, Shadow Warrior 2 focused more on the looter shooter space, where you could get a huge variety of guns. However, in Shadow Warrior 3, you get 6 or 7, I think it is 6, core guns to use. You get your revolver, my personal favorite, very good at close and long range headshots. It is skill based. I like it. I've always liked the revolver. The shotgun, good damage per second shotgun. It feels chonky. One of my favorite guns throughout the series. Maybe not the best gun, but definitely a utility weapon. Then you get your classic Uzis. These go well against kamikazes. They're fodder control. They look quirky and they're a good fit here. Then the Crimson Bull, or your grenade launcher. It's a lot of fun. And for me, it was a great boss melter. But then finally, my favorite, the Basilisk, which is essentially the replacement for the railgun that you get in Doom Eternal or Doom. The Basilisk just looks great, it's powerful, and I like it. So that's about it. But then finally, one of your other utility weapons that you're going to be wanting taking a close look at is the Shuriken launcher. Now, the Shuriken launcher is apparently a crossbow of your weapon slot. I don't know where the Shuriken launcher would sit. It does act as a stun whip. It stops heavies from moving, so you can get some time to get your breath, get more ammo, get more health, or the way I used to use it is just lay in many many shurikens and let the shurikens do their job, and while I can focus on other enemies down the range with my basilisk. I like the shuriken, very powerful weapon. While you're mixing up your weapons with your gore weapons, your dashes, your movements, and your finishes, oh, you're not done yet, because every arena, well, just about every arena, will have traps. Yes, these traps are a lot of fun to use. I like them. I think they add another layer of uniqueness to the overall Shadow Warrior 3 experience. Not every trap is awesome, but the bladed traps for me are my favorite, where you can activate them and they can potentially destroy waves and waves of enemies, both heavies and fodders. When you do mix these elements together in one arena, you've got an eye-bleeding, sense-melting, adrenaline-drenched wang dance. And in that dance is a multitude of elements at play at every given time. The game wants you to mix these elements together. It suggests that you strive for flow and perfection with the weapons, the movement, the finishes, the environment, the traps. Oh, the satisfying nature of every single kill when you've gone through that arena. Now that is what the game wants you to take part in. That is the true spirit of the Wang Dance, and that is what you should strive for. Shadow Warrior 3 is probably going to be the best single player FPS we're getting in 2022. And with an update or two, probably one of the best FPS single player games that we've gotten in the last few years. Yeah, fine, besides Doom Eternal, sure, but we're always going to compare shit with Doom Eternal, aren't we? I do think it stands on its own, and I do think it adds its own unique twist, flavor, and formula to each one of those aspects. It's highly entertaining with its dumb humor. I love me a good dick joke. The gameplay is engaging, although it does get old eventually, and this is something that I want to mention here. This game would do great with having more replayability. I would love a level select. There isn't one right now. I would love a new game plus mode where I can go back and start to hunt for more unlockables, because I feel like I didn't unlock everything and I'd really like to go back and finish those. I do think there's a lot of potential for Shadow Warrior 3 to have a DLC, maybe a series of DLCs. At the end of the day, this game is a relief for me. It was fun. It's not too serious. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's here to fuck with you and help you laugh at yourself from time to time, like I did. And it's just great. So now for my rating. If you've bought this game already, you already know that it's fun, so I'm not worried about you. But if you haven't yet, I would just wait for the end of the month so Flying Wild Hog can roll out an update. Don't pre-order this, but definitely buy this. I would just wait just a little bit longer for that update so it can get rid of some of the glitches that I've found. Just that little bit of extra polish, and then this gameplay experience will be amazing. This game needs to be in your collection. If you are a fan of the series, if you are an FPS single player fan in general, if you like Doom, if you like Halo even, shit, I'd say you gotta buy this game. Shadow Warrior 3 needs to be in your collection. It is fun, and it's a really great break from the manky muck of overly sweaty FPS games out there. Just sit back, blow some shit up, laugh at the stupid jokes, and have some fun, my friend. And that's Shadow Warrior 3, everybody. Thank you for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did creating it. If you didn't like it, let me know why, so I can always improve. And until next time, everybody, please take care, rip and tear. Cheers.